History is filled with giants. We all know the names: Rome, Greece, Egypt. Their stories are told in classrooms and epic movies. But what if I told you there was another superpower, a titan of the Bronze Age, that stood toe-to-toe with the pharaohs and commanded vast territories, only to be almost completely erased from history? A civilization so advanced, they pioneered iron weapons and chariot warfare, and signed the world's very first peace treaty. Today, we're pulling back the sands of time to uncover the incredible story of the Hittites, the forgotten superpower of the ancient world. Let's set the stage. We're going back over 3,500 years, to the Bronze Age. While mighty Egypt was building pyramids and the Babylonians were writing laws in Mesopotamia, a new power was rising in the rugged highlands of Anatolia, which is modern-day Turkey. These people were the Hittites. Unlike their neighbors who spoke Semitic or other local languages, the Hittites spoke an Indo-European language, one of the earliest ever recorded. This makes them linguistic cousins to a huge swath of people today, from India to Ireland. Their capital city, Hattusa, was a fortress of legendary scale. Perched on a rocky outcrop, it was protected by massive stone walls, secret tunnels, and monumental gates guarded by carved lions and sphinx. This wasn't just a city, it was a statement of power. From this formidable base, a dynasty of ambitious kings began to forge an empire. They weren't just content with their Anatolian homeland. They had their eyes set on the rich lands of the Near East. So, what was their secret weapon? Two things: iron and chariots. While most of the world was still relying on bronze, the Hittites were masters of early iron metallurgy. Iron weapons were stronger, held a sharper edge, and were more durable than bronze. Imagine being a soldier facing an army equipped with this superior metal. It was a game changer. But it wasn't just about the metal in their hands. It was about how they moved across the battlefield. The Hittite chariot was a marvel of military engineering. It was lighter and faster than many of its contemporaries. Crucially, it carried a crew of three: a driver, a warrior with a spear, and another archer. This made it a versatile mobile weapons platform, a sort of ancient armored fighting vehicle. It could charge into enemy formations, unleash a volley of arrows, and retreat before the enemy could effectively respond. This combination of iron and speed allowed the Hittites to conquer vast territories, creating an empire that stretched from the Aegean coast all the way into Syria. Their expansion inevitably brought them into conflict with the other great superpower of the day, New Kingdom Egypt, led by the legendary pharaoh Ramesses II, also known as Ramesses the Great. The ultimate collision of these two titans occurred around 1274 BCE at the Battle of Kadesh, in what is now Syria. This was one of the largest battles ever fought in the ancient world, involving thousands of chariots on both sides. Ramesses, eager for a glorious victory, marched his army north. The Hittite king Muwatalli II was waiting. He used clever tactics, hiding his main force and luring the Egyptian vanguard into a devastating chariot ambush. The battle was a brutal, chaotic affair. Ramesses himself was nearly captured and claimed he was saved only by the intervention of the god Amun. In the end, both sides claimed victory. The Egyptians celebrated Ramesses' personal bravery, while the Hittites controlled the battlefield and the territory of Kadesh. But here's where the story gets truly remarkable. Instead of endless war, these two superpowers did something unprecedented. About 16 years after the battle, they sat down and negotiated. The result was the Treaty of Kadesh, the world's first known international peace treaty. We actually have copies of it. An Egyptian version is carved on the walls of a temple at Karnak, and the Hittite version, inscribed on a clay tablet in cuneiform, was discovered in the ruins of Hattusa. The treaty established borders, created a defensive alliance against common enemies, and promised not to invade each other's lands. It was a landmark achievement in diplomacy, a moment of reason in a brutal age. The Hittites weren't just warriors and diplomats. They were also builders, lawmakers, and storytellers. Their legal codes were surprisingly progressive for the time, often favoring restitution over retaliation, unlike the eye for an eye principle of their Babylonian neighbors. Their mythology was a rich tapestry, weaving together their own traditions with those of the many peoples they conquered, like the Hurrians and Mesopotamians. These stories and deities would, in turn, influenced later cultures across the Near East, including, some scholars argue, the ancient Greeks. The Hittite kings weren't seen as living gods like the Egyptian pharaohs. Instead, they were considered the chief priests and representatives of the gods on earth. They were the first among equals. After their death, they were believed to become gods themselves, joining the vast Hittite pantheon. The Hittites worshipped 1,000 gods, many of whom were adopted from the cultures they encountered. The supreme deities were the storm god of heaven, Teshub, and the sun goddess of Erina. So with such a powerful military and advanced society and a stable empire, what happened to them? How did such a great civilization just vanish? Around 1200 BCE, the Bronze Age world was thrown into chaos. A period historians call the Late Bronze Age collapse saw civilizations across the eastern Mediterranean and Near East crumble. Widespread drought, famine, and rebellion destabilized entire regions. Mysterious invaders, known only as the Sea Peoples in Egyptian records, swept through the area, leaving a trail of destruction. The centralized Hittite Empire, dependent on long supply lines and tribute from vassal states, was particularly vulnerable to this widespread collapse. Their great capital, Hattusa, was violently destroyed and abandoned. The empire shattered. For over 3,000 years, the Hittites were lost to history, remembered only through a few scattered and mysterious references in the Bible. It wasn't until the early 1900s that archaeologists, excavating a site in Turkey, began to unearth the ruins of Hattusa. They found thousands of clay tablets, a royal archive. When scholars finally deciphered this strange cuneiform script, they unlocked the language and the history of this forgotten empire. The rediscovery of the Hittites was like finding a lost chapter in the story of humanity. It revealed a complex and influential civilization that was a crucial player on the world stage. They were a bridge between cultures, a military innovator, and a pioneer of international law. Their story is a powerful reminder that history is often written by the survivors, and that great empires can fall and be forgotten. Their triumphs and tragedies buried beneath the earth, just waiting to be rediscovered. So the next time you think of the ancient world, don't just picture the pyramids and the Parthenon. Remember the lion gates of Hattusa, the iron-wielding charioteers, and the forgotten superpower that once ruled Anatolia. Thanks for joining us on this journey back in time. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden corners of history. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. See you next time.